The banker taps the yellow legal pad, circles a number, and leaves the room. You have $120,000, one signed letter of intent, and 12 days to explain how a first-time buyer is supposed to close a $4.2 million deal without blinking. If this works, that one signature turns into a holding company with a dozen cash-flowing businesses, hundreds of employees, and equity that compounds far beyond anything your savings account could ever do on its own. If it fails, the wire leaves your account anyway. The guarantee keeps your name on the hook, and the building you just bought starts testing you before the ink is dry. That legal pad is the first rung, and the part most people miss is that the hard part is not finding a lender. It is surviving each level long enough to deserve the next one. Level 1, the hunter. You are 30 years old. Your apartment table is covered with broker teasers, county directories, trade association lists, and a spreadsheet with 1,140 businesses across plumbing, medical waste, fire protection, janitorial routes, and niche manufacturing. You are not an owner yet. You are a filter. This stage looks passive from the outside. It is not. You wake up at 6:15, skim listing emails before coffee, call owners during lunch breaks, and spend nights rebuilding financial statements line by line. The game at this level is not buying. It is refusing to buy the wrong thing. You want a company producing about $1.1 million in seller cash flow. Not revenue, cash flow. Enough to support debt, leave a margin for mistakes, and still make the purchase worth the years you are about to sink into it. Businesses around that size might trade around 3.5 to 4 times earnings depending on industry, customer concentration, and how clean the books are. Which means the deals on your screen cost several $1 million. You have $120,000. That gap becomes your education. You learn to read tax returns beside internal statements and notice where they disagree. You learn that one owner runs his lake house utilities through office overhead. Another pays his son $140,000 to handle business development, even though the son lives in Denver and answers 2 calls a week. A third has real margins, but 47% of revenue rides on one hospital system, whose contract renews next spring. You drive to Akron to meet a seller who owns a mobile grease trap pumping business. 3 trucks, 8 employees, 32 restaurant accounts. He spends 90 minutes telling you how badly he wants to retire and 10 minutes explaining why nobody else can do the routes as well as he can. That is when you learn something ugly and useful. Many owners are not selling a company. They are selling the story that the company cannot live without them. The public listings teach one lesson. The off-market calls teach another. Every business with a broker, a polished CIM, and a deadline has already been shopped to people with sharper lenders, richer partners, and more polished resumes. The edge lives in the owner who has not picked a date yet. The woman who still signs payroll checks on Thursdays. The founder who tells his wife he might sell sometime next year and has not said it out loud to anyone else. So you send letters, 52 in 1 month, 3 responses, 95% silence. The first near deal is a small fire suppression company outside Tampa. Service contracts, sticky customers, good margins. Then diligence turns one ordinary question into a dead file. How many technicians hold the state licenses? 2. And one of them is the seller's brother, who plans to move to North Carolina right after closing. The bank hates key person risk. You hate it more. You walk away after 5 weeks, a travel bill, and a lawyer invoice. The second one dies because the receivables are 110 days old. The third because the EPA claim in the footnotes turns out to be very real. Somewhere after the 9th broken process and the 17th ignored voicemail, the glamour leaves the room. Good. It needed to. Then a cleaning services company in Charlotte replies to your outreach. Commercial accounts. Recurring contracts. $6.8 million in revenue. Around $1 million in adjusted cash flow. The owner is 61, still working 6 days a week, and tired in a way you can see before he says a word. He slides over 12 months of statements, points to a line item for payroll, and says the price is $4.2 million. What you do not know yet is that getting to yes on the price is the easiest part of the deal. Level 2, the buyer. The number is now real. $4,200,000. You do not have $4,200,000. So you stop thinking like a saver and start thinking like a capital stack. The SBA loan becomes the backbone. The bank is willing to fund the majority of the purchase because the business has history, recurring revenue, and enough cash flow to support the payments. But the bank does not buy confidence. It buys structure. The stack starts to form. The lender covers the largest piece. The seller carries a note behind it. You bring the equity injection. On paper, it looks neat. In practice, it feels like holding 5 glass plates over concrete. 10% down on a $4.2 million purchase means $420,000. You have $120,000. The missing $300,000 does not magically appear because your model works in Excel. You call 2 former operators you trust, one retired executive who likes boring businesses, and an aunt who once told you she would back you if you ever brought her something real. 2 say no. 1 asks for security you cannot give. 1 says yes. The wires come in over 4 anxious afternoons. Your savings account drops to a number small enough to make your chest tighten. Then the seller note becomes the hinge. You ask the owner to leave part of his proceeds inside the deal and wait before collecting on it. Not because it sounds elegant, but because without that standby period, the debt service gets too tight and the bank's comfort disappears. He stares through the conference room window for 6 long seconds before agreeing. Now diligence gets mean. The lender orders a quality of earnings review. Accountants in blue shirts request bank statements, invoices, payroll registers, and customer churn reports. They find 2 things fast. First, 1 large client prepaid a quarter of annual service, and the seller booked more of it up front than he should have. Second, the company has been running with less working capital than you expected because the owner delays replacing floor machines and pushes vendor payments today, 45, whenever cash gets thin. That knocks the adjusted earnings down. Not enough to kill the deal. Enough to drag you into a fresh argument over price and the working capital target. This is where first-time buyers get introduced to a detail nobody puts in the fantasy version. If the seller empties too much cash or leaves too little inventory and too many old receivables behind, you inherit a company that cannot breathe in week 1. The fight is not dramatic. It is decimal points, schedules, and red lines. But it decides whether your first payroll clears. You win just enough. Then comes the paper with your name in the wrong place. Because you will own and control the business, the bank requires a personal guarantee. If the company fails badly enough, the loss does not stay inside the LLC where your model said it would. It reaches for you. You sign anyway. The seller shakes your hand at closing, but what stays with you is not relief on your side. It is relief on his. Tomorrow you walk into a warehouse, 2 offices, and a dispatch room full of people who did not choose you. And every minute they do not trust you. Your loan is exposed. Level 3, the operator. The first Monday starts at 7:02 a.m. in a break room that smells like bleach and burnt coffee. 12 supervisors stand near the vending machine. One nods. Nobody asks a question. Buying the company got you the keys. It did not get you credibility. The branch manager has been there 14 years and knows every school district contract by memory. The payroll clerk can tell which janitorial crews are underbid just by looking at supply usage. The night operations lead has a ring of keys heavy enough to sound like a warning when he drops them on the desk. These people know where the money leaks. You do not. Not yet. The debt starts counting immediately. Monthly principal and interest, insurance renewals, payroll every 2 weeks, fuel, chemicals, repairs, uniforms. You stop talking about valuation and start living inside coverage ratios and weekly cash reports. For the first 90 days, every habit matters. You ride with crews at 10:30 p.m. and watch a 2-person team clean a medical office in 51 minutes, because that is the only way to see why the labor model works there and fails in older buildings with 3 floors and no freight elevator. You sit beside the dispatcher while she fields 3 call-outs in 20 minutes and patches routes together with a dry erase board and a red marker. You learn that one church account loses money, one school account carries the branch, and a forgotten clause in a municipal contract lets you raise rates with notice. So you do the boring fixes first. You increase prices on contracts that have not moved in 3 years. You cut a customer who pays late every month and complains on every invoice. You replace a cousin of the previous owner who has been approving overtime with no control sheet since 2018. None of this feels visionary. It feels like mopping up after a party you did not throw. Then comes the real test. A regional hospital account representing 18% of revenue puts the contract out for bid. Lose it, and the bank starts asking harder questions. Win it, and the company has oxygen. For 3 weeks, you sit in conference rooms with procurement staff, revise staffing plans, and stand beside your operations manager while she explains infection control protocols line by line. You realize the business is not being judged on your purchase price, your lender, or your ambition. It is being judged on whether a floor is clean at 5 a.m. You keep the contract. Barely. By year 3, the company is stronger. Debt is lower. The cash flow is steadier. Your take-home is finally meaningful. The panic that once hit every time the lender emailed has turned into a monthly routine. And that is the trap of this level. One stable business can buy you a very good life. It can also make you stop before the model becomes a machine. Most people stop here. Then one seller in Knoxville calls back. If you are still here, you are exactly the kind of person who loves this game. Subscribe if you want more of these, because this is where the structure starts to matter. Level 4, the acquirer. The first company is no longer just a job. It is proof. Banks return calls faster. Sellers take meetings sooner. Your financial statements now show a real operating history instead of a resume and a promise. The second acquisition is a floor maintenance company in Tennessee. Stripping, waxing, burnishing, stone restoration. Messier margins, but strong route density and commercial clients that overlap with your first business. The purchase price is lower. The logic is bigger. This is the mechanism most people never see from outside the room. A single small company is often priced as if its future depends on one owner, one office manager, and a narrow buyer pool. Put 2 or 3 related operators under one parent. Centralize bookkeeping, insurance, recruiting, and purchasing, and the combined earnings start looking different to lenders and larger buyers. The dollar of profit did not change its color. The structure around it changed its value. That spread is powerful. It is not magic, and one missed quarter can turn it against you. You hire a finance manager at the parent level, then a recruiter, then an operations executive who can float across companies when a branch manager quits. Instead of solving tonight's crew shortage yourself, you begin designing the system that solves it 5 times in 5 cities. The third deal is a specialty restoration company in Columbus. Water cleanup, post-fire demolition, insurance jobs. The fourth is a parking lot sweeping business with route overlap around Nashville industrial parks. Each deal adds earnings, but also integration risk, culture problems, software headaches, and one more lender file with your name on it. Then a bad week reminds you how thin expansion can get. 2 months after closing the restoration company, its estimator leaves for a competitor, a box truck transmission fails, and an insurer delays reimbursement on 3 major jobs. Suddenly, your neat roll-up thesis is sitting in a shop yard beside a disabled truck and a pile of unpaid invoices. You spend a Saturday in a folding chair outside the service bay, calling branch leaders, moving cash between entities the legal way, and reworking the week's payables schedule so nobody misses payroll. This is why the holding company matters. Not for the title on the website, for the ability to move management, systems, and capital faster than a standalone owner can. Level 5, the builder. By now, you are no longer collecting companies like baseball cards. You are building the parent on purpose. At 41, the organization has 7 operating businesses across 4 states. The parent company has its own office, its own controller, shared HR, centralized insurance, and a lender presentation deck that gets updated every quarter. Branch leaders submit numbers by the 10th business day. Procurement is negotiated centrally. Equipment leases get reviewed in one place. Hiring ads run through one funnel instead of 7 scattered Indeed accounts. Each subsidiary pays the parent a management fee for those services. That matters because it creates a disciplined way for cash to rise to the holdco instead of sitting trapped inside scattered checking accounts. And once debt on earlier deals gets amortized down, you gain another tool. Refinancing. A company you bought 4 years ago at one leverage profile now has cleaner books, stronger margins, and less debt. You refinance on better terms, free up capital, and use that capital to fund the next acquisition. You did not sell the first company. You made the balance sheet work harder. This is where outside money starts whispering louder. A lower middle market fund offers to recap the group. An investment banker sends a pitch book showing what a platform sale could fetch if you package the whole thing and market it aggressively. The spreadsheet says one thing. Your operating history says another. Sell now and you lock in a life-changing number. Hold, and the machine keeps compounding. You sit in the office on a Sunday with 3 tabs open on your laptop. Current leverage, pro forma for 2 more acquisitions, estimated after-tax proceeds if you sold the platform in 18 months. The room is quiet except for the HVAC cycling on and off. This decision changes the shape of the next decade. You do not tell anyone your answer yet. Level 6, the holding company. You hold. At 48, the picture finally looks like what the younger version of you was reaching for, even though it looks nothing like the fantasy he had in mind. 12 companies. Commercial cleaning, floor care, restoration, parking lot services, facility maintenance, and 2 niche B2B route businesses that feed the same customer base. More than $140 million in combined revenue. A parent entity with real staff, real reporting, and equity that now sits in territory your first spreadsheet never dared to model. From up here, the game changes again. You are not the only one who sees boring service businesses as valuable. Private equity funds now crowd the same industries, paying higher multiples for scale. backing aggressive roll-ups, and arriving with polished deal teams and faster data rooms. The water is full of bigger boats, but they carry a clock you do not. Their model usually requires an exit. Buy, consolidate, improve, sell. Your model can keep the company name on the truck, keep the branch manager in place, and keep the business under one owner for as long as the numbers and leadership justify it. That difference sounds philosophical until you sit across from a founder who cares more about his employees than the last half-turn on price. A seller in Richmond owns a 34-year-old facility maintenance company with 86 employees. His daughter is a teacher. His son wants nothing to do with the business. Two groups have already bid. One offered more cash. He chooses you after one sentence. The company will not be flipped on a timetable. That sentence wins deals money cannot always win. And now go back to the legal pad. The banker. The circled number. The room that felt too quiet. You thought the whole climb was about debt, leverage, and structure. It was for a while. But the deeper advantage turned out to be simpler. A huge share of small businesses in this country are still owned by people past 55. In the next 10 years, thousands of founders will face the same question. Who takes this over when I am done? Some companies will sell well. Many will not. Some will close with customers still calling and employees still needing work because no qualified buyer showed up in time or showed up with the wrong plan. That is the moral layer hidden inside the financial one. A holding company built with SBA-backed acquisitions is not just a way to control more earnings with less of your own starting capital. At its best, it becomes a succession machine. It catches businesses that might otherwise fade out when the owner finally gets tired, sick, or simply ready to stop carrying keys at 6 miles in the morning. Years later, the first seller invites you to lunch at a steakhouse off Interstate 77. He orders iced tea, asks about the old employees by name, and tells you something he never said at closing. Another buyer had offered a cleaner process and a slightly higher number. He turned it down because that buyer planned to consolidate the branch, cut half the office staff, and resell within a few years. He did not spend 26 years building roots, customer trust, and a payroll that fed dozens of families just to watch it become a line item in somebody else's exit memo. That is what the legal pad was really hiding. Yes, the loans matter. Yes, the seller notes matter. Yes, the equity and the guarantees and the refinancings matter. But in the final layer of the game, the businesses you get to buy often depend on one quiet promise: that the company gets to keep living after the founder steps away. That is how one SBA deal becomes two, how two becomes seven, how seven become a real holding company. Not by chasing glamour, by learning to carry risk, operate under pressure, build a parent that can absorb chaos and protect what was already working before you arrived. If you want the next step after this, watch the episode on how buyers structure the capital stack behind these acquisitions once the holdco gets too large for beginner financing. That is where this story gets even more interesting.